My contribution to this debate is framed in the way I grew up, a product from the school of hard knocks. This budget most certainly was designed to enable us to put our hands around the throat of expansionary expenditure of an operational nature. Now, just remember where we've come from. Monetary policy that sunk to a global low, money printed as if a fiddler's elbow was turbocharged, fiscal policy that was loose as a goose. The budget now is constructed in very straitened circumstances. Number one, there is no monetary saviour coming our way. It's evident from the Governor of the Reserve Bank that he is going to hold the line and interest rates are only going to drop bit by bit. And the Crown, through this budget, is confronted by the fact that if we continue the profligate approach enjoyed by the last regime, the ratings agencies will come knocking. So then, Madam Speaker, what is the government to do? First, strip unnecessary regulatory barriers from those who are willing to invest, boost their confidence, grow the certainty so that they will invest. How do we do that? As reflected in the expenditure items of the budget, move on with a far more permissive resource management process that gives people the confidence when they make a commitment they'll actually get an approval before they get the gold card. Secondly, Madam Speaker, give a greater degree of confidence to people that already have businesses that they will actually be able to invest without suffering too many penalties. And what's the response to that? The response is the fast-track bill, which, by the way, Madam Speaker, now has a majority of New Zealanders supporting it. Forget about all the apocryphal tales from the other side of the House. Forget about the fact that they left the dead weight hand of bureaucracy upon the economy. We are stripping all that away, and we are introducing investors back to our natural legacy of mining, of fishing, of horticulture, where we are going to meet what the world wants. The world wants food. The world wants rare minerals. Now, of course, I can hear it now. My opponents, large in volume, small in number, will cry that somehow we're compromising Papatūānuku by actually going onto the dock estate and mining. The dock estate covers an inordinate amount of New Zealand and it's overrun by rats and weasels and pests, etc. It's tailor-made for a new approach so that extractive sector investments can take place in appropriate places on the dock estate. And this budget, by contributing to the costs of passing the fast-track legislation, improving RMA, is going to deliver an overdue dividend for regional New Zealand. Yes, there will be a loud number of minority voices, but they are only a tiny fraction of the New Zealand public. Yes, there were people covered in Gaza scarves and other such detritus walking up Queen Street. They don't represent New Zealand. They represent that tiny portion of the public who want to dislodge this government. We are not going to allow the economy to be continually assailed by all of these catastrophizing stories. We are going to turn on the engines of growth. How we're going to do that is not only through stripping red tape, we are going to work on a process of co-investment, and it falls to me with my characteristic modesty to remind everyone that we have the $1.2 billion fund which will help boost the productivity, develop the resilience of the regions of our motu. Now, there were a few critics who didn't quite like the administration of an earlier fund. Fortunately, Madam Speaker, now they're my dearest friends. In fact, I feel a whole lot of applications coming from certain members who may have had a doubting Thomas approach in the past. Oh, the winds of change, they do bring various beneficial offerings from time to time. Another thing I'd like to focus on, Madam Speaker, is that we can't create a prosperous economy unless we modernise our infrastructure. But how do we modernise our infrastructure unless we can give investors, contractors, a sense of confidence that they'll not only get an approval, but there is an agenda to blend private and public capital to accelerate the delivery of infrastructure. But what is the community looking for in a commercial sense? It's looking for a long-term, broad range of projects so that capital can be mobilised, labour can be mobilised, and we have a long-term pipeline. That, Madam Speaker, will be delivered through the fast-track legislation, which is wending its way through the Select Committee. And as I've said to a number of loud but largely dislocated voices in Thames the other day, improvements, I don't want to mention any names. Apparently I'm not allowed to refer to that person by that name. No, I don't. But those who were present, and in particular the person that you mentioned, their criticism of modernising infrastructure I've described as belonging to the Flintstone School of Economics. And what is their response when I go out and I actually meet with that tiny minority of loud Luddites who do not want us to develop mining, who do not want oil and gas? What do they say to me? Something akin to yabba dabba doo. We cannot back down when our economic circumstances are so dire, Madam Speaker. I want to finish my contribution off on the Māori side beyond this budget. The Waitangi Tribunal is overdue for a haircut, what we call in Kaitaia a kina cut. It not only needs better members, it needs a writ that brings it up sharp very quickly. In my view, it has no business entertaining concepts or undertaking inquiries to do with the Constitution. That's the business of directly elected parliamentarians such as ourselves. So I look forward, Madam Speaker, during the course of the life of this budget to work taking place to bring the Waitangi Tribunal to a spot where hopefully both sides of the House can accept that it may have a role, but it is not the wandering, not the convolvus, not the expansionary writ it is giving itself. And stop saying that the treaty should only be known as the treaty. The Treaty of Waitangi cannot be dismembered. The Treaty of Waitangi is a bilingual, bicultural, inseverable document. And this dangerous ideology pushed around by the party who's currently engulfed in about five or six reviews, so they're going to be busy on other matters for a while to come, should not gather traction in terms of how we view the future. Similarly, Madam Speaker, a change that no doubt will be ushered through during the course of this budget, paid for by this budget, will be reframing what is the extent, what is the width and the breadth of the seabed and foreshore legislation. That legislation, decisions made under that legislation, cannot continue if they have the effect of chilling, undermining infrastructure development. The notion that when we expand our ports, as is the case with Tauranga, they are consistently and constantly having to pay a toll in order to keep the local claimants of the Takutai Moana Brigade happy is not only offensive, it must be halted immediately. Final thing I'd say in relation, Madam Speaker, on this matter to do with Māori elements and the budget, co-governance is gone. Co-investment is in. If you want to know one reason why we're sitting here and they're sitting there, they allowed that viral, intimidating, undermining policy of co-governance to go into the recesses, both of the state and policy where it didn't belong. Consequently, it will no longer blight or undermine the delivery of policy. I say again, The treaty, our citizenship, is indivisible. Kia ora tātou.